Billy Joel's not a tomato can.
Welcome everyone, you were listening to and perhaps watching Hot Sauce Sports. I'm Peace Del Reese, and if you were watching, you just saw Terry Tam jack off imaginary dicks. How's it going, Terry?
Jacking off dicks is my weekly. It's my weekend fun.
I can imagine.
Today's Wednesday.
He's getting ready for the weekend.
I'm getting ready. There's no dicks here, Eagle.
Preparation.
Yeah, you gotta work
Preparation
out.
B.
Practice. Talking about practice.
So Eagle joins us. Of course, he's producing the show. We have a ton of stuff to get to. Really oddly busy week for a bunch of small stories, so it's gonna be a fun rapid fire segment. We're also joined with Jared, husband's Tweety, and our very own Spence Plamondon. They're gonna be talking to us about the McFadden's charity. One thing before we get to the show, the McFadden's movement charity is one that deals with athletes and mental illness. We got the news over the last 24 hours of the passing of Colt Brennan, a guy who I loved watching in college.
I think everybody our age is like Colt Brennan. Like, it was shocked. Everybody loved Colt Brennan when he was coming out.
And like, especially like, you know, if you're old enough to be in college and watch, like, you were up late to catch the late night games because you were done partying, go home, watch the game.
He was so good.
It was fun to watch. He was awesome, and he was a guy I thought would translate to the next level. And he's a guy who had been in rehab for the last 5 months, and self-medication and that kind of stuff is common for athletes and common for people in general. So if you do need help, do reach out to organizations who can provide assistance. And we'll talk to Jared about his group. But in the meantime, we'll get into some of the stuff we want to talk about. I saw this topic, Terry. I had sort of a kind of a annoyed reaction to it. The topic was the Canadians did not start a French-Canadian athlete for the first time since who cares. I saw it, and so first of all, my first thoughts are this headline doesn't make sense to anyone anywhere else in the world. And then it doesn't even make sense in the city that the Canadians play in, where basically everyone under the age of 50 is completely bilingual. So I don't know why this.
It's not even like the whole French thing. It's like the Quebec-born thing, and French media just lost their fucking minds, man.
Well, but that's like the English media said Quebec-born. The French media made it very clear that you and I aren't considered Quebec-born. Eagle is not considered Quebec-born. My mother, by the way, who was born here, is not considered Quebec-born. But that's a whole other thing.
It's ridiculous how a language means that you're good enough to play in the NHL. And you know what they did? They played Belzile today, and they played Belzile 2 nights ago when in between, and then they just didn't have the guys. They didn't have the bodies. So the roster that they put on, there wasn't any Quebec players. Cry me a fucking river, man. They're playing Belzile. Belzile can't tie my fucking jockstrap. Like, he's not an NHLer, but he's on the roster because he's French. That's the wrong way to do shit. It's the wrong way to do shit.
This is the same media that tears up Drouin constantly. This is the same media that was in Patrick Roy's face every time he had an off day, which wasn't even common. It's the same media that had an issue with PK Subban because he was the wrong kind of Quebec in several ways. And so, yeah, like I saw it, and at this point, it's one of those things that's just become a media construct, right? Like, do the fans actually care about this?
I was gonna say, I think the Canadians organization is being too nice about this. Like, if I was part of it, my statement would be, well, maybe it's time Quebec has some good players come out of their system.
Like, especially Premier Legault then said the Canadians need to work harder to get like, you know, Quebec born. He didn't actually say French Canadian. He said Quebec born players on the roster. And I would fire back and say, well, then I think the provincial government should invest more in youth hockey. If that's
Let me tell you this: being involved in youth hockey and seeing the kids that are developed, more kids are going to the States because the opportunities are better to play prep schools in the States than they are if it's rare you're going to get drafted. Like 1% of the kids that play in Quebec will get drafted in the Q. Only 1% of those guys will get drafted into the NHL, and only 1% of those guys will actually have a career of more than 4 years in the NHL. So it's ridiculous the amount of money that they put into this stuff, the amount of politics that goes into making your rosters. It's never always the best players. It's always about who's going to bring in what or whatever. Not only that, is they took contact out of Pee Wee hockey like 5-6 years ago, and ever since that we're dwindling now. So like Quebec players aren't developing as much, and even there's players in the NHL. Well, if you're a guy and you played in the Q and you scored 115 points in the Q, we'll be like, well, it's in the Q because there's no contact. It's an easier league to play in. Why? Because Quebec, we don't develop the kids the way Ontario develops kids, the way Vancouver develops kids. You know what I mean? So it's British Columbia. And that's the reality. So we're not developing the kids enough to be good hockey players. Look, some of the best. There's a kid, okay, there's an Italian kid from Montreal. His name is Michael Estarza. This kid, at the age of 15 years old, left the province. He's going to get drafted in the first round in the NHL in 2023, and he hasn't lived in Quebec in the last 2 years.
But
does he count because he was born here, but not really.
But if he played on the Montreal Canadiens, he would technically count, but he doesn't have a name.
He would only count for half of the media.
Because he would only count if he was good.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing is that, you know, my wife was not born here. My kids will grow up speaking perfect French and not have a French last name. Eagle and his girl, same thing.
Bonjour.
You know, you and your girl, same thing. Like, all of our kids will have immigrant names and be fully fluent in French, but still be an outsider in our own community. And that's a gap that at this point it's I believe incumbent on the French media to stop stroking those flames. You know what I mean? Like it's embarrassing at this point. It's and I don't have a problem with the journalists. I think La Presse is one of the best newspapers in the country. But when it comes to this one specific topic, it borders on racism.
But what I will say in defense of most people is that a lot of French-speaking people, like on Twitter and stuff, where we send the reactions, are coming out and saying, like, this is stupid. So, like,
again, like, it's a media construct. It's not something the people of the city where the team plays even believe.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's something that's completely constructed. Hopefully it goes away. But on a show where we make fun of media constructs, it's time for us to get into it because it's time for the news.
It's not my fault. My mouse died.
Eagle, hum it. Terry, it's the news.
Is it now?
I love that it's a punishment we've established since day one of the show, where when Eagle makes the smallest mistake, he needs to hum music. That's punishment for just, you know, like his mouse dying.
Eagle, hum Take On Me.
No. We're gonna get one of those stupid Google AdSense noises.
No, you can hum it. You're allowed humming.
Especially if you're this bad at
Give me that high note, Eagle. I love how the vein in Eagle's neck is like pulsating.
Yeah. Speaking of rodents,
he's also deaf in one ear, so he only gets half of the sound.
Thank God. Thank God. So this is my favorite story of the week. It's the most important thing that's happened in sports, I want to say, in the last 30 years. Yeah. It involves the New York Mets. It's the first time the Mets have been relevant since about that much time. Terry, have you ever seen a New York Rat?
I've seen New York Rats, but I haven't seen one that was like freakishly big. I've seen the ones that are big, but I haven't seen one I was like, wow, that's like huge. Apparently, there's some that are size of raccoons and cats.
Yeah, I've seen cats. Raccoons would be quite large. We saw a brawl on the weekend. We saw well, not really a brawl. So we saw Jeff McNeil and Francisco Lindor get into it and sort of chase each other into the locker room. It was pretty clear, and like other guys followed them in. It looked like it was a fight of some sort. But Francisco Lindor said it was the opposite. He was just excited to share this experience as a New Yorker.
Steve, it was funny because I told him, I was like, hey, I'd never seen a New York rat. So we went down sprinting. I want to go see a New York rat. And he got mad at me. He's like, no, it's not a rat. It's a raccoon. I'm like, hell no, man. It's a damn rat. It's a New York rat, man. I was just crazy because we were going back and forth debating if it was a rat or a raccoon. Crazy, man. Insane.
I love this.
Yeah. So I love how he just goes with the big smile. And he's like, don't worry, I'm charming. Everyone will leave me alone. There's not going to be a follow-up about this because why would anybody ask me a follow-up question? Because I gave the most ridiculous answer of all time.
I didn't see what happened. I only know the story because you told me about it. I didn't see it. It didn't come up on my feed today. So
I was watching the game. I was actually watching the game and I saw it happen. I was like, okay, but like to me it was like
all the time, yeah.
Two athletes got into it. Baseball's a long season. It happens all the time. It just people are watching the Mets now because there was expectations for the first time in a while, you know, and like they're still all right. Like they have a negative run support, but they're leading the division, so I guess that's fine.
And with leading the division, and Lindor hasn't really kicked off yet, and I think he will, especially now with this whole raccoon situation.
Well, look, I mean, obviously the issue wasn't that he was hitting like below the Mendoza line and everyone's frustrated. It was because it's hard to decipher whether or not there are rats or raccoons in the locker room in Queens, which is understandable. And I guess Jeff McNeil probably went on to shed some light on this.
Yeah, like you said, nice debate about a rat or a raccoon. To be honest, I thought it was actually a possum. So, not
another animal to the
not
next.
a raccoon, a possum.
What's the relationship like with you and Lindor right now?
Oh, it's been fantastic. We're great. We work well together up the middle. Just very positive all the time. And, he's just, fantastic to be around. So, enjoy, playing up the middle with him and, look forward to, keep doing it all year.
So,
I feel bad for journalists sometimes because it's like, he's like, what's your relationship like? Obviously, they're not going to give you the answer you're looking for. So why ask the question?
Don't tell me the New York media is tough again. Don't give me the thing about how Zach Wilson, for example, is going to struggle as a young quarterback in New York City because of how tough the media is. They had to deal with rat, raccoon, and possum. And my question is, the only question in this that even matters is, Terry, do you go possum or opossum?
Oh, I don't even know the difference between an opossum and a possum.
They're the same. People in the South say opossum. I don't know why.
Possums are weird, man. They pick up food with their hands. It's like they have like human hands, but they look like a ferret. It's a little weird, but they're cute.
So raccoons are evil, obviously. Where are possums on the evil scale? They're obviously evil. They have masks, guys.
I think possums are more evil than raccoons.
Possums are definitely worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
They will fuck you up.
Raccoons are nice.
Google if possums are worse than raccoons. I just want to know what the result.
It is. They absolutely are.
I know. I just want to know what the first result brings up.
Are possums worse than raccoons? Is a previously searched Google result.
Obviously,
and it says,
yes, it
both
is.
animals carry the same set of potential dangers regarding disease, but the raccoon is a bit more dangerous than the more passive behavior of the possum. But when the possum gets angry, then it actually is more dangerous.
So possum's worse because it's got an anger problem. Maybe it should seek help, seek counseling. That's but you know what? Maybe Luis Rojas can shed some light on which animal was in the Mets locker room. This is the finest investigative journalism we've ever done at Hot Sauce Sports.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of skepticism over the fact that Francisco comes in here and says this whole thing was over a rat and a raccoon. Are you willing to say that this whole thing was over a rat and a raccoon, or was there?
I don't know. I don't know what it was about. Like I said, when when I got down there to the tunnel, and then the only thing I can recall is Francisco telling me that we're playing baseball and we're gonna win this game. But that's all I know from what happened down there. Like I have no idea like of the story of the rat or raccoon or anything like that. But like I said, my focus once again was the game. The whole time, everything that was going on, everything that we had to think to include the pieces to win this game, we almost used the entire team tonight.
Perfect answer, because he's shining a light on how ridiculous the media is. Who gives a fuck? They're clearly lying to you about this rat raccoon situation. Why do you want to ask more questions about it? Why?
Well, I have more questions. So I have more questions. So imagine the situation, right? Imagine they're telling the truth. Let's just assume, because you know what? Francisco Lindor is so charming. I believe his story.
Oh yeah, I believed him at first. That's what I was trying to say. I believed him at first. I am not knowing the situation. I'm watching. I'm like, what the fuck? Why the hell would a raccoon be in the locker room?
But check this out. What happens is Lindor goes down and he's like, "Yo, that's a big fucking rat." And then Jeff McNeil says, "Bro, you don't understand. You're new to New York. That's obviously a raccoon, which is in here for reasons." And then poor Rojas comes in there later as they're arguing about this and is like, "Hey guys, what are you arguing about?" And Lindor just turns to him and says, "Fuck off, it's time for baseball." Like all angry like a child. Like that's how I saw it. He's just a guy who got there late and there's no more birthday cake.
Oh man, it's fucking ridiculous. I can't take it. I can't take journalists sometimes. Like 90% of them are fine. You know, it's the 10% that just don't give it up. Ask Luis about the fucking change-ups. Ask him about why they had to come back when they were down. Ask him a bunch of questions. Ask him anything other than something that nobody cares about.
Questions about the actual pressing questions about the animal. You know, for example, did the raccoon eat any of their food? Were they starving after the game? Like those are the things we need to know.
When they scheduled the COVID vaccines, did they also get a rabies vaccine for preventative measures?
That's a good point. Did they? Yeah, exactly. Did they look ahead and be like, we might have a raccoon infestation?
Yeah, exactly. And like everyone talks about rat infestations. Could you imagine having a raccoon infestation? Like
I have it at my old house. It's not fun. I'm telling you, it's not fun. They were basically they were like in the roof area. They managed to rip open a section of it essentially, and we're kind of like between the house and the roof, and kind of live there. We had to get like an exterminator and a cage and the whole thing. It was really, really, really not fun.
I have a story about once when my wife was and then girlfriend was living in Toronto. Was helping her move in. I went to sleep a little bit later than she did. It was really hot. There was no air conditioning yet. Left the window open. And so she gets up in the morning and she sees a bunch of empty Raptors. And she's like, well, did Peas engage in some NFL blitz and eat all of the candy? And then she realized that the candy wrappers had like a trail going out the window. And what it was is that raccoons had broken in while we were sleeping and eaten all of our candy. This is a true thing that actually happened. Raccoons are fucked. I
went to go for Mother's Day. I went to the cemetery to see my grandmother with my family, and there was a couple raccoons there because people were having picnics and stuff, and they're super cute. I like raccoons, man. I like looking at them. Now, would I be able to recognize a New York rat? That's another point. That's another thing. I don't think I would.
Eagle, do you have a test ready for us to see if we can tell the difference between rats and raccoons?
I do, and we're going to do this somewhat quick, so that way you, just like the players, that maybe you saw it in a little peripheral thing, you got to tell me, is this a rat or a raccoon?
Raccoon.
It is a rat.
Nice.
See, you can't tell the difference sometimes.
Here.
I'm betting you, Terry.
Rat or raccoon?
Possum.
Oof. That was a possum. Just definitely a trick question. Definitely an opossum.
That is a raccoon.
God damn it.
I don't even know, man. What's going on?
All right. Rat or raccoon?
Raccoon.
That was a schnauzer. That looked exactly like a schnauzer.
It's a fucking raccoon. Terry, are you blind? What's wrong with you?
Terry, have you ever seen a raccoon? Like, or do you think raccoons are something else? Like, do you think a raccoon is a snake?
I have yet to see a raccoon on the screen that Eagle has shown me.
All right.
Or to what I think.
Rat or raccoon?
Rat.
No, that was a ferret. That was a ferret.
That's a rat, Terry. Jesus.
What the fuck? You know what? I'm gonna call Lindor. I think I need a crash test. A crash test
Yeah,
on.
right.
I need Francisco Lindor's cliff notes
And
on what
last
the rat.
one here, rat or raccoon?
Jeff McNeil.
That's definitely Jeff McNeil.
Yeah, I think that's Jeff McNeil. That's all it could be.
I mean, that's a cute ass Jeff McNeil.
Actually, you know what? He kind of looks like Jeff McNeil. Like, jokes aside, put a Mets hat on him. It's not far away. We'll
Jeff
get the graphite on it.
Scratch golfer too.
Yeah, well, look at him. How can he not be? He's a mix of Dustin Johnson and Jeff McNeil.
Jeff McNeil is a mix of Dustin Johnson and Keith Urban.
Yeah, I can see that actually. It's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Pease wins with 3 out of 5 correct. He missed 2 of them, one of which he thought was a human. So you should probably get your
one of which
checked,
I knew was a human.
Knew exactly because that's clearly Jeff McNeil.
Democratic process. You're wrong. Terry, you wrote an article this week about how Canelo Alvarez is the greatest athlete we have right now, right?
I think he's the biggest star in the world.
I was looking for the words.
Yeah, I think Canelo Alvarez, especially after winning, he beats Billy Joe Saunders this weekend. It's not because he beat Billy Joe Saunders. They filled up AT&T Stadium this weekend. Okay, 73,000 people showed up to watch Canelo Alvarez box a guy from the sticks of England. Okay, and an undefeated boxer who's a very good boxer. Billy Joe Saunders is a very good boxer. But Canelo Alvarez filled up an entire stadium. When he came out, there was a whole mariachi band. They had the 17-year-old like pop star Mexican girl. She was beautiful. She was singing. He came out, gave me goosebumps. Like the amount of time it took him to come out of the tunnel. Usually I complain. Like I'm the guy that complains whenever the pick is in at the NFL draft, but it takes 10 minutes to get to Roger Goodell's hands. But like I was like, I'm enjoying this show, and he comes out and they lose their mind. 73,000 people lost their fucking skulls when this guy came out, and when he won, I'm talking like Ali-esque. I'm talking like when Mike Tyson was at his prime. The roar that he got in a stadium that usually fits 100,000 people. Jerry Jones was watching live. Canelo Alvarez, to me, I'm not saying he's the best boxer of all time. I'm not saying that at all. You know, there's arguments you can make for a lot of guys. You can say Muhammad Ali, you can say Mike Tyson, you can say Evander Holyfield, Mayweather, whoever, you know. But he is, I think today, after that win and after what I saw in Arlington, Texas at AT&T Stadium, I really do think Canelo Alvarez is the biggest star in the world right now.
So, you told me that there was a viral video, and I forgot to link in the script, so I apologize for that. But when you told me about the viral video, I took to Twitter and I said, well, let me go see what Terry's talking about. And the first one that came up in my feed was he was being interviewed by members of the Levitard family, but in Spanish.
Oh, in Spanish?
So Spanish is my 4th language. I'm not good at it at all. I know the word tetas because it means tits, and I know the word cerveza. And you know what? Like when I travel, my wife fills in the rest, which is everything.
How do you speak to your mother-in-law?
Poorly, very, very
tits
poorly.
And beers.
Yeah, I only order one of them from her. But so the thing is that you sent me that, and I was just like, what am I supposed to be getting from this? So like, can you break down what happened? Given that we don't actually have the clip queued up, can you break down what happened?
So he wins. He's doing his press conference, and this video is classic because Canelo Alvarez never speaks English. Never. Yeah. Like when he speaks English, it's very quick. You know, he understands it fluently, but I guess he's not.
That's why he was being interviewed in Spanish.
Yeah, he was being interviewed in Spanish. So in the middle of the interview, Demetrius Andrade, who's another, he's a middleweight champ, but he's like one of those boxers that. He's a champion, but you don't know he's a champion until he fights an actual champion. He's like one of those guys. And he's a good fighter. He's not bad. And so he shows up and he starts asking Canelo. Canelo Alvarez just loses it on him. He's like, get the fuck out of here, man. And he's like, he goes full Mexican on him. And he starts ripping him a new asshole. And it opened me up to who Canelo Alvarez was. And Canelo Alvarez became an instant, one of my all-time favorites in that 2-minute clip.
I totally agree with you.
Telling this guy off, telling him he's a horrible fighter. You're a horrible fighter, horrible. And he's like, get the fuck. And he does this thing with his hand. I'm gonna show him my camera. He does this thing with his hand, and I'm like, I don't know what that is, but I like it.
It's kind of like what I've been told is it's kind of like the equivalent of like the Italian like under the neck kind of thing.
Yeah. And he's yelling at the guy's dad. Yeah, exactly. The Mavafanculo, one of those ones. Mavafanapoli, the Joy Tribbiani. And he gave me goosebumps, him talking shit to Demetrius Andrade. And I was like, this guy does not have to fight anybody he doesn't want to fight anymore. He's gonna pick and choose everybody want. And the thing about Canelo Alvarez is he picks the best fighters. So now he's gonna fight Caleb Plant. He's gonna unify the belts there. He's gonna take the IBF away from Caleb Plant. After that, Jermell Charlo, who's best kept secret in boxing. If you're not a boxing fan, you don't know who Jermell Charlo is. Watch boxing, you realize that this guy is no fucking joke. And he's like, I'll vacate all my belts to fight Canelo, and that's the fight to make. And I can't wait to see that. And Canelo's gonna do these fights because Canelo knows what's up. Canelo knows where the money is. The guy's an ultimate star, instant. I'm a huge fan of Canelo.
I'm kind of with you. I liked it. So a lot of times when people see stars who don't speak a lot, they think of them as like, oh, well, but how competitive is this guy really? But like, that was like some Kobe style shit in that press conference. You know what I mean? Like there was like zero fear in that man's face. It
was like when Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz started throwing water bottles at each other. You ever see that one?
Yeah.
And Conor's like, get the fuck out of here. And he just gets up and starts throwing water bottles and monster cans at Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz, him, Jake Shields, and all his boys are throwing shit, and he's throwing it back at them. It reminded me of that. I love fighters when they just leave like politically correct mode and they're just like, fuck it. I'm gonna show you what kind of a fighter I really am, and I'll do it right now.
There's some stuff like what's his Colby Covington. Like that act, like the over the top, like
Colby will never do anything physical unless there's a camera in front of him and unless it's in the octagon, which I respect.
No, but he seems like he like his personality. Like I think he's a fine fighter, but I feel like he puts it on for the camera. And like here, this just seemed like, yeah, you know what, Alvarez is putting it on a little, but you can see he's kind of a little pissed off, and what he's putting on is like the 10%. But he's that mad in that moment. So like I kind of felt that it felt authentic, it felt fun. I agree. Like as soon as I saw that clip, I couldn't stop smiling, and he made me a Happy DAZN subscriber. Let's put it that way. So I'm happy to be contributing to whatever he's making. I want to bring up something, and we'll go through this kind of quickly because it's not a new story, but I want to get you guys' opinion on this. Adam Schefter, he broke the Aaron Rodgers story. Obviously, I have an article up about Aaron Rodgers and calling Bradshaw an old man because he is. With help from the clip of Terry Tam. Clip made me laugh all week, Terry. Thank you for that. But the thing that Adam Schefter said in subsequent interviews, and I think it was on Dan Patrick's show, he talked about how he had accumulated this information over sort of a long period of time and decided to drop it on the day of the draft. And a lot of people are upset about it because it took attention away from the draft. And like some people are like, oh, but you're a journalist. Aren't you supposed to report the news when you know it? And like, here's the thing. I don't think it's a story that matters that much. So I don't think it affects journalistic integrity in that way. The other thing I got about it was, imagine the flex by Schefter. Like, you know this news. You know Ian Rappaport might break it at any time. You're like, no, I have the story. Nobody else. I can sit on it. Like, if you and I had that story, we would break that. Like, if it took me 20 minutes to write the article, you'd be yelling at me for 20 minutes. You know what I mean? So, like, go out, break this shit. It's important. But Schefter's so confident. He's like, I'll wait till draft day. I'll drop it then.
But that's the thing about Schefter is that he's so good and his timing is on point. And Rappaport is good, but he's kind of like he's still like a sophomore, you know, where and his sophomore in his undergrad, where Schefter has got his master's, you know what I mean? He's got his MBA in dropping shit at the right time. You know what I mean? Like he's like the Waj bomb, you know what I mean? Like it was Schefter.
Oh, he's like the Waj bomb was it's all about Shams Charania now, man.
Exactly. Yeah, I was just about
Holy
to say.
shit!
So
And that guy's like 10 years
Sham
younger than
bombs
us.
are on fire, and Sham is breaking shit that's not even basketball related. That's
I
that's
know.
the part about Sham. It's great.
Can
But
I put on my tinfoil hat for this one?
Go for it.
Adam Schefter is secretly a Green Bay Packers fan, was aware that this was going on, and used his leverage to ensure that Green Bay would make a good first-round pick because of the public pressure of the news story.
Oh, you know what? Schefter, I think he's like from Detroit, so it's very likely he could be a Packers fan. He's a Michigan guy, I think.
Or a Packers hater. Maybe he's trying to drive a wedge because he's from.
Maybe he's a Lions fan. Has been suffering for the past 20 years.
There you go.
More than that, actually, but
Since the dawn of the Lions.
Everybody hating on the guy because he has to reveal his sources. First of all, no, journalists never reveal sources, right? Second of all, he has no obligation to release news that he knows. It's like if I know that my neighbor is stealing the garbage of the other neighbor, I don't have to say anything.
Yeah.
If I know my neighbor leaves at 1 o'clock in the morning every night, I don't have to say anything. You know what I mean? It's the information that I have. I don't have to say shit. If he decided not to say anything and let it happen, if let Rappaport release it, and then he comes out a year later and he says, "Oh, I knew about that," you can't get mad at him for not saying it.
You also need the thing is if Schefter releases his sources, he won't have sources anymore.
Exactly.
It's just like we also know that pressure too, Terry. Like we've known some things about some guys, for example, somebody whose name rhymes with Bonnie Tanzel, which are stories we can never tell.
Exactly.
Or some stories about an ex-Montreal hockey player who plays in a desert that we can never tell that story because, again, our sources asked us not to. But, I think it's interesting in that I think Schefter's excellent at what he does. There's no J in ESPN, right? They're an entertainment company. That's who they work for. I'm kind of on the fence. I'm a traditional journalism guy, so yes, I think you should break the story when you get it. At the same time, I don't think this is a story that sort of divides worlds and can start wars. So I'm good with him sitting on it. I just want to know, Eagle, what's your thoughts on this? Like, what are your thoughts on the journalistic responsibility?
Yeah, so I think there you also have to look at the intent as well, because if there was an intent to withhold the story, to drop it on draft day to create a controversy, you can argue that it's a little bit malicious from his perspective of basically picking the timing of it to try and make maximum impact,
He admitted that he held it the draft day, but the idea was to get as much attention to the NFL draft as possible.
Obviously, but I mean more like, did he know of it months ago? Is this something he learned in the past week or two? In which case he's like, I'm going to hold it for, you know what I mean? Like, there's a little bit more in terms of how long did you have it ready for the perfect moment, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to do it on draft day? Or did you just learn of it and it's like, well, instead of doing it today, I'm going to wait 48 hours, 72 hours, whatever it is, next weekend we'll do a draft day as the big thing. For me, that's a fundamentally different way of looking at, the withholding versus the publishing.
So I heard the interview, and he said that he had started assembling the information going back to the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, I mean, okay, they're negotiating clearly. Something's going on. You hear a little bit here, a little bit of that, but maybe you actually get it confirmed by multiple people more recently. So I don't know. There's a lot of complexity that goes into it. So I see it as fine. It also made draft day fucking exciting from my perspective, right?
Of course.
Oh, what's going to happen? Oh, someone going to trade up. Oh, we're already talking about the 49ers looking for a quarterback. We heard that story coming up. Other teams are looking for quarterbacks. What's going to happen with Mac Jones, blah, blah. It created a lot more drama and excitement around certain teams and certain picks because this was up in the air.
Yeah. You know what? Like I said, it's interesting. I don't think the subject of it is so important, despite how many people hold sports in that regard. I don't think it's so important that he needs to have broken. If anything, all Schefter did was, put his own sort of reputation at risk because someone else could have broken it first. But he still ended up getting to that first.
That being said, crisis averted. The Packers have signed Blake Bortles, so we're fine.
Oh, they got him a pass catcher. That's nice.
They got him a receiver.
So before we get onto the interview, I do want to remind people, if you like what we do drop us a like, rate, review, subscribe, do all that stuff because it helps us continue to build that content. When we come back, we're going to have an interview with Jared Husbands-Tweedy and our very own Spence Plamondon from Hot Sauce Sports, and we're going to talk about a charity that is very important to Jared and a cause that's very important to us at Hot Sauce Sports. And we're back. From where exactly? Nobody knows. But joining us is one familiar face, hot sauce member in Spence Plamondon. How's it going, Spence?
Pretty good, man. How's it going with you guys?
Pretty good, pretty good. And joining us is also an unfamiliar face, but someone we hope to know more and more as time goes on. Jared Husband Sweetie joins us. He's representing a charity called McFadden's Movement. And we're going to get to that in a second. One thing we will say is, Spencer, how do you feel about how Jared is presenting himself on this chat right now? He's out here wearing the wrong colors. You know, in certain parts of the territories, you shouldn't be wearing blue and white. Is that correct?
This is true. This is something I've talked with him. I mean, talk is putting it in a nice way. It's something we've argued about a lot, you know. But I gotta respect it, dude. The Leafs are having a great year this year. I gotta say, like, from a hockey fan standpoint, as much as I'm a Habs fan, like, that team is, if the Habs are gonna lose, like, I'm happy it's to Toronto. I want to see them have a bit of success. I gotta say.
I kind of feel the same way about Toronto. Yeah. I'm kind of like, because I'm a Matthews guy. Like, I like Austin Matthews.
He's amazing. Yeah, me too.
And you know, I like what they built. I mean, I love Jumbo. I'm a huge Jumbo guy. Like, how can't you be a Jumbo guy?
Yeah, you want to see him get a cup.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, if they get past Montreal, I think I'd be rooting for Toronto. Yeah.
Well,
I can't see Toronto.
Years past, I don't think we have a choking chance in the first round. So Montreal has that. So
and Montreal always does well in the first round. So
yeah, exactly. And you have Carey Price. So.
Yeah.
I do like Toronto in the way that, you know, you like that your younger brother is not really a threat. You know, like when you bring a hot girl home, like your kid brother is like, all right, you know,
Jared, look at Jared.
He's still in high school, you know. Had to do it. So, Jared, all jokes aside, why don't you tell us a little bit about the McFadden's Movement, how it is that you're involved, and what it is the charity is all about, and then we'll talk a little bit about that, and then, of course, we'll get into the typical nonsense that we usually do on our show.
So I'll give you a quick rundown of how I got introduced to it. It was through a friend of mine that I became an editor for through gaming in the NHL community. And he played in the Guelph, not for very long, but he played for the Guelph Storm. And through that, he got contacts through the alumni, the players, and all that. And he came up to me about 3 weeks ago with the opportunity to run a stream to fundraise some money to build awareness towards their movement. And as soon as he gave me that chance, I said, I'm all in. You have to say no more. I'll sign up, no problem. So for the last week and a half, we've been streaming over on his channel, which is twitch.tv/Migo Bango. But it's tough because the game we're playing is very stressful and it causes a lot of people to lose their minds.
What game are you playing?
NHL 21,
yeah, NHL.
And it's by far the worst year of the series, in my opinion. So it causes a lot of mental breakdown, which is great, but also it can be a downfall at times. But aside from that, it's a great cause. If you want to, I mean, coming from being an athlete myself, you were always told to push things under the rug, not show that you have any signs of weakness / injuries, mental, physical, whatever it is. So I find it amazing now, especially that during the pandemic, that kids need to know that you can go and talk to people about your mental struggles if you're in sports. Just because you're an athlete doesn't mean you have to walk with your chest puffed out and act big and honcho, right? So it's a great cause. I love the work that they're doing. They got some great hoodies and stuff like that, merchandise. But the message that they're sending is all positive. I see nothing wrong with it, obviously, and I think more people should be talking about this because it's not talked about enough. So
it's not talked about enough, Jared, but I think it's talked about a lot more in the last year, 2 years, with people like Robin Leonard coming out, and you know, like looking at Drouin, looking at we can even switch it to basketball and look at Kyrie Irving asking for just some time off to breathe. And I think that people don't realize that, yeah, you know, they're athletes and they're trying to reach a goal that they've wanted to reach since they were kids. But it takes a toll on you when millions of people are watching you do your job. Like nobody watches me manage my sales team. You know what I mean? I have my manager, just my manager talking to me just annoys the shit out of me. So I can imagine if there was a 21,000 people at the Bell Center yelling at me, shoot, 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 when it's not the play to shoot. You know what I mean? So it plays in your head a bit. And we have to understand that these guys are human also, and they have an emotion, they have a feeling, and people don't realize that. And the worst part is that we weren't empathetic to that, and that's why people don't come out. And as a guy who struggled with it for a couple of years, having an outlet to talk to somebody, or just having it out there and being like, okay, I'm not the only asshole that suffers from anxiety. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not, like, it's not a bad thing. Everybody does it. Just take a second to breathe, talk about it with somebody that you trust. And I think that people don't realize how important it is to just realize that everybody goes through shit, and shit happens. And just like Forrest Gump said, shit happens.
To touch quickly on that,
to talk about it, right? Like, to open up and have that courage to talk to someone and to actually reach out. Like, that's where the strength lies. It doesn't take a ton of strength to just grit and bear it. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, it twists you up. I guess it does take a certain kind of strength, but I mean, at the end of the day, the real strength comes from opening up and tackling those issues, right? So
I agree.
Yeah. I remember growing up, and whenever there was a suggestion about an athlete having an issue with mental health, it was always like, well, how can you? I remember who it was exactly, but it was in relation to quarterbacking, and it was saying, how can a guy run a huddle if he's not even in control of his own mind? And it's just cool to see that we've come such a long way to realize those two things aren't in any way related to each other. And it's the most obvious thing, but it's only become obvious because of the bravery of the people who have started to speak out on this. Can you tell us a little bit, Jared, about maybe some, a story or two about specific people that were helped by the McFadden's movement and sort of what you've seen in your time?
Well, actually, I can't personally.
Or just
I just
heard as being a part of it. You know what I mean? Like, not necessarily something you witnessed, but something, maybe while you're talking to Garrett McFadden, something that's.
I actually haven't talked to Garrett myself.
Okay.
I haven't talked to him yet. So I'm like a third party in this.
Okay.
To where Ryan Miggy, the guy I work for, he's the connection to this foundation, and I work for him, right? So I'm using my platform to build awareness, to bring it to the McFadden movement, as well as he's using his. I don't have any direct ties to McFadden himself or those people in that organization, right? So okay. I can't give any personal experience from that, but I'm hoping to get there in the long run, of course.
You're an ambassador. You're an ambassador of the charity, of the organization.
Yeah.
And that's, in organizations, obviously the fundraising arm is important because that's how they keep moving forward. And obviously your Twitch is going to contribute to that. And we'll of course drop the link and let people know where they can see you. I know Terry mentioned his issues. I know for myself, I suffered from generalized anxiety disorder, and it was weird because when people found that out, I was like, well, but you have a whole podcast thing, and also you're a trained counselor who helps people largely with things like anxiety. And again, like it's cool because in years past, people like myself might not have even felt comfortable talking about this because it reflects on my own career in a certain way. You know what I mean? And again, to a point where we realize, self-care is important. And are there any athletes that come to mind that, again, not necessarily through the charity, but athletes that come to mind where their story sort of, maybe even Hugh Spence, either of you guys, where you heard their story and you're like, wow, that's cool that they've been talking about this?
I would say going back to the Kyrie story, that one really hit for me because I watched him from when he came into the league as a rookie. Even me being a Duke fan, I watched his 1 year there, as short as it was. But so to see that he was actually struggling with what's going on and that people were kind of being like, why are you struggling? Like that kind of like turned me a bad taste in my stomach, to be honest, because just because you're an athlete or a professional at the highest level doesn't mean you can't be going through something in your own head. Like that doesn't make any sense to me, why people were just brushing it to the side and being like, you can't be hurting, right? So it was great to see him be like, screw that, I'm going to speak my mind and let you know that I'm not all right. And thankfully the team is able to let him take those times and deal with himself, right? Because it has to be with the organizations that help the players as well.
One of the dumbest arguments I ever hear when someone's like Dwayne example, he takes some time off for himself and he's like, well, what is this kid? What does he need to do? He has millions of dollars. Like Kyrie, he's making $40 million this year. And maybe money would solve that person's problem. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe they're
or they think it would.
Or they think it would solve the problem. And trust me, it would not solve the problem. It doesn't not solve the problem. It maybe patches up an issue that's increasing the anxiety and stuff like that, which is okay. It gives you some time to breathe. But people think that just because he's a millionaire, he can't go through shit. That's the part that bothers me the most.
Well, Terry's like gladiators still, right? Like there's still remnants of that where we're still treating athletes like they're fucking pieces of meat here. I noticed one actually. Trevor Lawrence had that interview that caused a bit of a controversy before the draft there. He literally was just a well-adjusted person in that interview. He was talking about how like he basically said if he loses a football game or he loses a championship or someone, like life goes on. It's not like he's going to melt down over it. Like there are other things outside of football, and people lost their minds. Like, how is that the person you want leading your team? And honestly, I will take that guy over the guy that can't stand losing more than anything in the world. Because the guy who can't stand losing is up in his head being neurotic about losing. The guy, Trevor Lawrence, is going to forget about the last game as soon as it's done.
Well, right? I mean, Trevor Lawrence hasn't lost the game since he was like 4 years old, so he has no idea what it's like to lose.
That's a fair point too. But
that's why he also thinks it's no big deal. He's like, I don't know. It's like losing your keys, right? Yeah. There's two stories that come to mind, and they actually affect mine and Terry's favorite teams. Terry, do you remember when Terrell Owens had sort of a strange situation and people didn't know what was going on with him, and it was rumors of suicide, and his agent came out and said something like he has like, I don't know what it was, like 100 million reasons not to be depressed.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at that like my mouth was wide open, like shocked, like who would say that in front of a camera? That's crazy.
Yeah, but back then that was like 10 years ago. And it was
Drew Rosenhaus too.
Drew Rosenhaus out of all people. Like Drew Rosenhaus is probably you look at him and his face is shaped like a dollar sign. That's all he cares about.
That's true. He's actually shaped like a dollar sign.
Yeah, he's actually shaped like
that. I've been going through the website, and I've noticed that the charity is specifically targeted towards athletes, especially at the grassroots level. But one thing we haven't talked about is you mentioned that you're using your stream as a way to raise money, and that NHL is causing you a bunch of trauma. So I'm pretty sure the movement won't help you deal with that. We're listening if you need to express yourself right now. Okay, you can talk to us. This is a safe zone.
Well, so me personally, I've grown from it. Spence has seen the struggles I've had with the game, and I took a good 2 months off of the game to take a look back and see.
I just want to pop in. Jared's really good at this game. Like Jared is a really good player
in NHL.
Yeah. Last year I was top 10 in defensemen in the world. So.
You play that kind of NHL. You play.
Also I play 5-on-5 as well. But I mostly did that last year. But that's where the mental struggle comes with, because you have to deal with the knowing like an online teammate as opposed to a real teammate. It's very different, and they can. And for me, especially being a player of color in that community, I don't know if you guys know, but it's very bad. So I can go into a game and see 3 racist names, and I might lose my head just before the puck's even dropped because of what I'm looking at and how the game company is not doing anything to stop it, right? Yeah. So then I have to deal with playing a game that I love over talking bad about it because of what they're not doing in the development system, right?
Did you see what happened with T-Pain when he was doing his live switch?
Yes, I did.
It was unbelievable. Yeah,
I loved it. I loved every second.
Some guy was dropping the N-bomb on T-Pain. Is like a huge streamer. Like I didn't know this until I saw the story. And he's like getting hammered, and he on Call of Duty, and he just fucking smokes these guys. And he starts and he's just chirping them after that because they were dropping the N-bomb on him like 10 times. He's like, oh yeah, and then he just killed them, and he just started roasting them. It's just funny. And he has like his whole he has like a soundbite that he plays every time he kills somebody. Like he does it well.
See, does the soundbite have auto-tune though?
I think it does. I think it does.
It has to. So, we just because we got on the subject of race, one of the guys I was actually going to mention in terms of like mental health and wellness is one of my favorite football players of all time is Ricky Williams, And Ricky Williams, of course, famously dealt with that and sort of self-medication through marijuana and things that are largely tolerated in professional sports now, really weren't at the time. And I heard him once in an interview, and he's like, well, it was tough because I felt like an outsider in my locker room, but I kind of always felt like an outsider. And then the interviewer said, well, why is that? And he says, well, because I was born in America and I was born black. And he kind of laughed at it, but it's true. And it's something where, like, if myself and Terry, for example, or Spence, like when we play video games, we never have to worry about that. That's something that, it's gonna, as much as it might bother me, it's gonna bother you in a whole different way.
Yeah, I'll never forget the time that this will be the last thing I harp on it because I can't stand talking about this stuff. But
we'll be right honest. Sure.
I was in a party once with a guy, and they had said something about derogatory towards color, and I said, "Can you guys not? I'm actually black." And the guy goes, "No, you're not. No shot." And I was like, "What do I have to prove to you that I'm black? Because of my voice?" Like, it made no sense to me, and that's when I got a real bad taste for the NHL community and started to see everything for what it was, rather than just turning a blind eye to it and being like, "Oh, these guys are just little trolls." No, majority of the community is pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
Well, there's things in the game too, man. We talked about this in the pod when we had you on LFH. Like they have monkey sounds for a goal horn. They've got sticks up for Harambe. They've got all these things. Like, what do you think's going to happen? Like, this has been going on for years. Why are you putting that in there? It makes no sense. Like, it's
They don't like. I know it's funny because it's like it's a monkey and it's just an animal, but when you know that there's this kind of like stigma that exists in the world, why put that in there? Just take it out.
Especially with how bad the community is, right? Like, it's not like they just ended up being bad in 21. Like, no, they've been bad for forever.
My name online is sorry, Jerry. My name online is Terry Tam, so people think that I'm Asian. So I get made fun of because I'm Asian, apparently.
Really?
Yeah.
My name is Ballstronic.
Let's figure out what race. Figure out what race you are.
Sorry.
Let's figure out what race you are. You're the worst person to play online game against, so I don't even want to talk to you right now. Worst.
So we do something on our show, Jared. We let you go, and before we promote your Twitch stream again, we do something on our show called Rapid Fire. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I want your answers just quick, off the cuff. What do you think? Okay, so like, first question. EA is a trash company because
devs.
Developers.
Do I is this one word answers?
You're good. No, you're good. I don't think me and P's understood the answer. That's all.
The dev team. The dev team.
I will take offense to that as a developer myself, in that it's usually not the dev team; it's usually management. But I digress.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, the dev team doesn't fix any of the bugs in NHL, so no, dev team in NHL.
That's their fault then.
Terrible.
That's absolutely their fault.
The one timer is OP in NHL 21. Yes or no?
Yes.
The Leafs will lose in how many games?
Never.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it. Jared, where can people find your?
Nice try.
I did try. I tried to sneak it in on you.
You should have just asked. Like, is it a 7-game series or a 5-game series? Is it a 7-game series?
It's 7. Yeah, 7.
It's 7. Yeah, you should have just asked like a bunch of questions like that answered the answer 4, and then been like, and then at the end be like, how many games is it going to take for the Leafs to be eliminated? 4. That's the answer.
Yeah.
Because they're going to get small. Because Lehkonen is going to find his accuracy. He's not going to miss the net by 10 feet. He's going to score like 5 goals. That's what's going to happen. And Austin Matthews is going to be left with 1 goal in the 4th game, and that's it, man.
Pain.
It's going to be more painful when in a week from now you're going to be messaging us being like, yeah, I guess not, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, like, Jared.
Spence is going to take the brunt of it. I'll tell you that.
That's fine.
That's why we hired him. Jared.
We'll deflect to Spencer all the time.
Jared, where can people find your stream?
So it's twitch.tv/migobango or twitch.tv/debirds3, and it's debirds with a Z. So we do on both of those channels because he works, so I'll stream when he's working, and so on and so forth. We bounce from both.
Yeah, so Eagle, if we can add that into the pod description, that would be awesome.
Yes, sir.
That's Jared. Jared and Spence are joining us on behalf of the McFadden's movement. Definitely a worthy cause, something that is dear to our hearts as sports fans, and by that I mean fans of athletes who play sports. If you care about athletes, you care about the struggles as well. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Guys, thanks for having
It's
us.
fun.
Thanks, Jared. And let's play some NHL so I can lose like 18-0.
Because of the one-timers. I'm telling
We'll play on
you.
the same team. We'll play on the same team.
Okay, yes.
Terry, you gotta pick the Leafs though, just to make it hard.
I
on
don't
him.
mind. I'll play with the Leafs.
No, because then
I'll
he has
play
to
with
beat
any
the
team.
Leafs.
It
They'll
doesn't
just
matter.
lose.
I don't bias. I choose any team. So we're
Yeah.
good.
Okay, I'll take
There
the
you go.
Leafs just so I can say the Leafs lost. You take the Habs, and I'll take the Leafs, and then imagine I win.
And then you guys have a 7-game series.
The Habs are actually really good in the game, which is struggle.
Imagine
Cobble's
I
a
win.
great
What kind
player.
of a spin cycle would that be? Fuck, holy shit.
And we're back.
Yeah, that was awesome. It's look, we joke around a lot, and we tend to find the funny even when we talk about serious topics. And today was one such case like that. It was really good to talk to Jared and Spence about the McFadden's movement, and it's just something that's important to us. So I'm happy we got that opportunity. And so definitely follow the streams. Definitely do check them out. In the meantime, Terry, it looks as though you're ignoring me and placing bets.
I am actually. I've been.
I know you're. I know you. We've been friends so long. I know when you're ignoring me, and really, that's the height of friendship.
No, so I've been on a really cold streak, bad cold streak right now. I'm gonna bet on that guy Bertans that we have no idea what his name is, like who this guy is, the big ginger guy for Washington. Am I allowed saying ginger?
I think that's the one area. I think fat people are still allowed to make fun of fat people, and everyone's allowed to make fun of gingers. Those are the only two safe spaces.
So I'm gonna say that he's gonna get a rebound in the next 180 seconds, and I'm gonna say that Trae Young is gonna get a point in the next 180 seconds, at least a point. Okay, so I'm gonna submit this. $5 to win $28, and by the time we're done rapid fire, I should have my results.
Because every 180 seconds on Hot Streak, it's a great app. Do go out and download it. It's a lot of fun. Terry and I will be doing a live stream. We'll be promoting it as soon as we have the date confirmed. It may be as early as the day before this episode drops. Oh my God, we're so busy. It's annoying.
I was like, how's he gonna recover from this?
I couldn't. Eagle rapid fire. Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Ham-handed. After Kent Bazemore made light of Bradley Beal's injured hamstring as a way to make reference to Steph Curry's insane pace of play. At the moment, Bradley Beal snapped back. Bazemore finally had this in response.
Sure, kind of back and forth with you and Bradley Beal. I was just curious if kind of had a comment on the situation.
I mean, I guess you can't joke anymore, but man, whatever. I don't know, man. I feel like I'm a pretty lighthearted guy. I don't, I stay at my own lane. I don't, say things that ruffle feathers. But hey, man, it's just if you want to know what my loyalty is, it's the SC30. So, I mean, anybody out there chasing them, it's gonna be tough. But whatever. It kind of got out of hand. I didn't check my phone all day until after the game, so it's kind of blowing up. But I don't get involved in that crap, man. I'm gonna go home, love my wife, watch some Peaky Blinders, and go to bed, dude. I got work to do tomorrow.
Great show. I had
And
no idea
is
who
this a
this guy was
situation where
before.
you would reach out to Beal and explain the context of what you meant?
I mean, there's nothing really to explain. I was, laughing, jokingly, half-heartedly said it. I mean, it's not like I said I hope he does it. You know what I mean? It's already out, and I ain't wishing anything bad on him. It's just a comment. So, it's the kind of the world we're living in right now. A little bit sensitive, little sore paw out. So whatever, man. Roll with the punches. Keep your head down. Keep going. It'll pass, and like probably tomorrow, wake up and everything will be the same. I ain't got time for all that Twitter trash.
I had no idea who this guy was, and I like him just because he says he just seems like a guy's guy. I just want to go home, hang out with my wife, and watch Peaky Blinders. Like, leave me the fuck alone. Like, I like this guy.
So what it started with was he said something like, guys are out here pulling hamstrings, chasing Steph Curry as he puts up 49 points in 29, and what's it called? Bradley Beal had hurt his hamstring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Bradley Beal very self-serious, and to me, I saw it. I was like, the guy's obviously joking. It really doesn't matter. Everyone knows, Bradley Beal, that you're better than Kent Bazemore. For example, Terry didn't even know that Kent Bazemore, a guy who was previously a max salary player at the time that the end of when the NBA salaries exploded, I think in like 2017, 2018, he signed a max salary deal, and he also signed a shoe deal with Under Armour that year, which is why he has extra loyalty to Steph Curry. So yeah, so Kent Bazemore.
Who the fuck is Kent Bazemore? That's getting paid $40 million a year.
He's a very average 3-point shooter whose lifetime 3-point percentage is far better than Reggie Miller's.
No, that's not true.
It's so true.
I'm gonna find it right now, and I'm telling you, it's not true. Reggie Miller is the best shooter of all time.
I love how irrationally mad you get about one NBA player in history. You don't get that. If I would have made that joke about Jordan, you wouldn't have been as mad.
No, don't ever talk about Reggie like that ever again. I'll break out my jersey right now, and I'll fucking wear it. I don't give a shit.
Okay.
Best shooter of all time.
All right, next. Prairie Dogging It. Darryl Suter, coach of the Calgary Flames, seemed perplexed by the question asked by a local media member, Eric Francis.
Eric Francis?
Darryl, as an Albertan, how unique a situation is it that your fate for the next two of the next 3 nights rests in the hands of the Oilers?
Because I'm from Alberta?
Well, how unique a situation is it?
Well, I guess if I was from Saskatchewan, it would make a difference, but it doesn't really matter to me.
I laugh every time I see him. I laugh.
The irony of Flames fans now having to cheer for the Oilers, is that lost on you?
Well, I think there's lots of people that cheer for Connor McDavid. I do too.
That's a good answer.
You certainly will be over the next couple of nights.
So uninterested.
Some of these guys don't want us to win. Hey? Hard to
no.
Go to Eric Francis.
I don't even blame you for talking over the end of that clip, Terry, because he's awkwardly staring at Eric Francis because he's like, "What do you want me to say?" This is dumb. And like the local journalist Eric Francis was really going on that rabbit hole of like, "Oh, but isn't it weird because Calgary is in Alberta and Edmonton is in Alberta and like you need Edmonton to win? Isn't that weird?" And he's like, "No, it's just what we need."
I guess if I lived in Saskatchewan, like, oh man, I love this guy because I look at him and I laugh because I know he's already angry that he has to sit there.
Yeah, he makes grumpy cool.
Exactly.
Kudos to him. Kudos because it's not easy. Darryl Sutter, man, you make grumpy awesome.
Calgary was eliminated, right?
Yeah. So Montreal took the spot. That was the thing. So if Montreal had not gotten that point in overtime, then Calgary would have had a chance to make it.
I guess
they probably actually would have, considering Edmonton won both their games, or Montreal's lost both their games. But
well, the thing is, they lost in OT, so they still got a point. So I think either way, the results would have been the same.
I'm just happy for Darryl Suter because now he can cheer for Connor McDavid freely.
Yeah, he doesn't have to hide it. He doesn't have to hide it anymore. He can take off his suit with the Connor McDavid jersey under it, and he can just go fucking balls.
Yeah.
All right. Hold your horses. After one of the famed horse trainer steeds failed a drug test for the 30th time, trainer Bob Baffert had a very interesting explanation as to why this keeps happening.
Declared the winner. Bob Baffert joins us now. Welcome, sir.
Morning, Bob.
Good morning.
You've been in the news all weekend. I've watched a lot of your interviews, read all the transcripts. Are you adamant that you had nothing to do with it? Are you adamant that it did not happen?
Oh, this did not happen. That horse has never been treated with that, and it's a legal therapeutic medicine, and the amount that was in it wouldn't have any effect on the horse anyway. But that horse was never treated with that, and so that's the disturbing part of it. But I cannot believe I never thought I'd have to be fighting for my reputation and this poor horse's reputation because of the new regulations. The regulators have they're testing these horses at contaminated levels, and it's been a horrible experience.
So, Bob, just at the beginning of that answer, you were about to say?
Declared the winner, Bob Baffert.
That was it?
So, and then he goes on to say, and then he eventually will clean this up, but he went on to say that his horse was a victim of cancel culture.
Canceled culture. So the horse got canceled.
Yeah, because he gave his horse steroids. And
I love how he knew how much was in the horse, and he knew how much would actually affect the horse, but he didn't give him that stuff.
He didn't give it to him. And also, he's being unfairly canceled, the horses, because of the cancel culture that's in horse racing. What's interesting, though, is after that, I feel like nobody really thought about canceling horse racing, but then everyone was like, yo, these guys are whipping horses. Like, he kind of woke up the mob for no apparent reason. And like the only reason he did that is because you're doping your horses. This has to be the best week of stories we've ever had. Rats, raccoons, and horses on steroids. I'm sorry. I know I'm going long. There's two other explanations he offered. One was that one of the guys that worked in the stable was on cough medication and he pissed on the hay and the horse ate the contaminated hay. Now the most recent story is he's going with the veterinarian. She gave him this medication, and the medication contains this banned substance. It reminds me of when these like pro baseball players throw the trainers under the bus. It's gross. It's the worst. Guy, you doped your horse.
So update on my bet. Bertans did not get a rebound, and Trae Young did not get a point, so I lost my bet again. I'm on a really big cold streak. I'm on a cold streak, man. I'm on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bet cold streak.
That won't happen to you, avid listener. Go ahead and place your bets on Hot Streak today.
Exactly. You be a millionaire.
So you can get hot.
Yeah.
Strawberry Milk Stride. DK Metcalf was the story of this past weekend after running a 10:37 100-yard dash and placed 15th of 17 runners. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are that if he put 6 months of training into becoming a track star, Olympic track star, he would be on the Olympic team.
It is, and like, don't forget that he's running at this size, right? Like,
yeah,
no other Olympic athlete is built the way DK Metcalf is, right? Like
even like Michael Johnson, who is considered like Usain Bolt is like 6'8", but he's not thick like DK Metcalf is. Even Donovan Bailey was like 6 feet. They're usually about like 5'10", 5'11", 6 feet, long enough legs to create an extension.
But it's more the bulk I'm talking about, like the overall weight that
the size. Yeah.
Like he's like what, 245? Like he's a big dude.
No, he's not that big. There's no way he's 245. He's probably about 220. No, he's probably about 220, 225, like 6'4". Yeah, I don't think he could be 245. David Boston was the biggest receiver.
DK Metcalf is 6'4", 235.
235.
Okay.
He's a big dude, man. He's to be that fast.
How much did David Boston weigh?
More. But so like just while Eagle's looking that up, I will say that to your point, like if you're one of the runners,
228.
228, so less. But he wasn't as sculpted, I guess, as DK.
David Boston was probably the most ripped guy I've ever seen in my life. Legit.
You forget when David Segui was hitting the roids hard in the late Expos days. But no, so like the thing with DK is the two guys who finished after him, guys, that's what you do for a living. Like, how embarrassed are those two guys? Like, the real story, the 30 for 30 that should come out is the two guys who finished after DK Metcalf and how this will inevitably ruin their careers.
Exactly.
Next, Tebowing. The Jacksonville Jaguars have signed Tim Tebow to a contract as a tight end, reuniting him with Urban Meyer. And he came from Florida, essentially, and he's still in Florida because Jacksonville, but different Florida.
No, same Florida.
Same Florida.
They're in Gainesville. They're in Jacksonville, Florida.
Eagle, we gotta do a live show from the Panhandle. It's official. We gotta get your Florida.
That sounds really nice. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Tebow is a tight end. I mean, I see it. I don't think he'll make the team. Honestly,
he will not make the team.
I don't think he'll make the team. But you know what? He had a decent stint with the Mets in the minor leagues. The guy's an athlete. He knows how to play football. They might put him on the roster. I don't see him playing special teams. I don't think he's going to put himself through that physical damage. I think that he'll be a very situational, like Taysom Hill style, but not as much. Taysom Hill play.
I don't think he's as good as Taysom Hill. I don't think he even makes the team. I think Tebow is a good dude. It keeps feeling like between the Mets and his later tenure in the NFL and now with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tim, how many dances are you going to go to before you realize you're the only chance you got to get in a dance is going with your cousin?
I just don't understand this signing, right? So he's a quarterback who hasn't played in I don't know how many years.
He's a thrower of the football. He's
okay, fine.
I think he hasn't played in the NFL in like 8 years.
Yeah, let me finish my thought. So he hasn't played in the NFL in like a significant long time. So you can argue he doesn't really have a skill set anymore. He's clearly creating a distraction for the team at this point over here because the media is talking about him, and he's famous for kneeling on the floor. I thought the NFL didn't like those types of players.
That's true. You might get suspended for protesting. That's true.
Yeah. He knelt for because he's pro-life, right? For abortions and stuff like that. So he knelt for what he believed in, and people liked it. Some people didn't. And
does this remind you of anyone else who has the exact same pedigree who isn't getting an offer?
Well, the argument is that Colin Kaepernick wants to play quarterback when he sucks at being a quarterback.
So you're saying if he wants to play tight end, it's good.
Exactly. Tim Tebow knows that he sucks at being a quarterback, so he's like, let me try another position.
So here's one other thing though. Just last thing on Tim Tebow. Here's the thing I understand least is they keep talking about how he's going to be useful in like a wildcat package. I'm like, yeah, I know it's not like the Jaguars didn't use their number 1 pick on perhaps the best running quarterback we've seen since Lamar Jackson,
and then use another pick to get that player's running back,
who's the fastest man on earth.
Yeah, I mean, they really needed that option.
They really needed that extra running. Yeah.
Next,
I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
Not a job fit for a king. Wayne Gretzky is said to have turned down a offer of approximately $2 million to be a broadcaster for ESPN. Now that the ESPN is going to be broadcasting NHL games, ESPN has now said they are no longer interested in bringing him aboard, and so they basically have no one of any competence levels to be covering hockey. Your thoughts?
It's not that they don't have anybody at competence levels. They don't have anybody that's entertaining. And Wayne Gretzky is probably the most boring human of all time. Great guy.
I was gonna say
boring as shit. And
like,
I'm happy that he didn't accept this money.
ESPN didn't learn with Jason Witten. Like, this is the Jason Witten, in terms of personality, the Jason Witten of the NHL. Like, Wayne Gretzky's never said an interesting thing in his private life, let alone on camera.
The only thing that Wayne Gretzky's ever said that was funny was when he cried when he got traded from the Oilers and he said, I promised the Mets I wouldn't do this. Like, that's probably the funniest thing he's ever said.
And like, and we're laughing at a guy who was genuinely sad.
And that was in 1993. 1992.
The only decent thing about his personality was that he rocked a mullet for way too long.
Yeah. The only time his personality was good was in a Tim Hortons commercial.
Oh yeah, it's true. The shots when he was doing the shots.
How many takes do you think that took?
Way too many. And the script writers must be pulling their hair.
Yeah, I was like, thank the hockey gods that this happened. So I'm basically thanking Wayne Gretzky because Wayne Gretzky is like the hockey.
Yeah. Well,
so I'm thanking Wayne Gretzky for not accepting the contract. So we're not bored listening to this guy on TV. Just give the mic to Pierre Maguire and let everybody make fun of him on a nightly basis.
Charles Barkley. Give it to Charles Barkley on
Snoop Dogg, Charles Barkley. Get them in there.
Make it best. Let's do it.
Try it. Last one for this week, and whoever wrote this title, I love you. No cap. Logan Paul and Floyd Mayweather got into a pre-fight press conference fight, I guess you're going to call it that. And one might expect it to be handled maturely. That was clearly not the case. However,
let's do it. Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen.
Yes, sir.
Get the paperwork for this bum.
Get Al Heyman.
Absolutely. I don't need Al Heyman.
Let me call Al Heyman.
I'm my own boss. I'm my own boss.
One night. Got your hat.
Oh.
Got your hat. Got your hat.
Almost.
Let's do it.
Let's make it happen.
He's
almost. This was Logan Paul.
No, that was Jake Paul.
Oh, it was Jake. Okay.
Yeah, but so Logan Paul was facing off against Mayweather because they're announcing their exhibition fight. But Jake Paul runs into Mayweather in the back and he sees him and they and that's what happened. So Jake Paul is the guy that grabbed it. So Jake Paul does this thing. So he starts off really well. Like when he did that whole video against Conor, he's like, Conor McGregor, no. He starts calling him out. He kind of like talked too much and then lost it a bit. So it was kind of cringy. That taking the cap away is very cringy, but him getting in Mayweather's face was perfect. Like if that's the fight you want in like 2-3 years, you're gonna get it because of that, you know. But taking the hat and got your hat is like, okay, like you're a kid, you're gonna get fucking smoked by the best boxer of all time. Like, just fucking be a man about this shit. You know.
I think we're gonna disagree. I'm starting to turn. I hated the Pauls. I still hate the Pauls, but I gotta respect the hustle of a pair of brothers who legitimately turned themselves into professional athletes.
Oh no, I agree. I respect them. I'm just saying is that he takes it like his viral moments are just a little too cringy.
This is the path. Their path towards professional athletics is not the same as Floyd Mayweather's. They took matters into their own hands, and through the vehicle of YouTube, of all crazy, bizarre shit, of all the 2020 and 2021 things of all time, Logan and Jake Paul are professional athletes who are earning more than your average run-of-the-mill MMA fighter. If you go back 2 years ago, I just loved the personalities of Dana White and hated the personalities of the Pauls, and it's like reversing as time. I'm finding I'm liking the goofiness of the Pauls, and the self-seriousness of Dana White is getting lame as fuck.
I like what the Pauls are doing. They're doing what they want to do, and people are watching. What's wrong with that? There's literally nothing wrong with that. What I don't like is that it's 1% too cringy with Jake Paul. It's just 1% too cringy. It's like, we respect you, and then he does something stupid like that. You're like, okay, it takes away the respect. You know what I mean? Like,
power of the cringe.
Power of the cringe. The cringe king.
The cringe who stole Christmas.
That should have been the name of the episode.
Yeah. Oh man, that was awesome. Honestly, look, it was a strange episode because a lot of weird things happened this week, but it's our favorite kind of show. Yep. I had a good time. For those who like the weirdness, those who like that we dive into some of these topics, do remember to like, subscribe, rate, review. If you see somebody's wallet on the street, you should definitely return the wallet to whoever dropped it. But if you see any money in that wallet, they're probably going to forget that they had it, because who carries cash anymore? Take the cash, bring it to Eagle's house. And that'll help us. Any little thing. So whether
and leave a note in the spot to remind them to watch, comment, and subscribe.
Absolutely. Thank you to Jared Husbands Tweedy for joining us, as well as Spence Plamondon. Thank you, Terry, for all your great work on this show and everything else you do for the network. Eagle, thank you for everything you've done, and thank you all for letting me be myself. You've been listening to Hot Sauce Sports.